Hey, what's up, America? Donald Trump cancels all trade negotiations with Canada again. So this time, Donald Trump's feud with Ontario Premier Doug Ford continues to grow. So Ontario Premier Doug Ford sent out a video showing Ronald Reagan talking about how tariffs destroy American families. Now that's all fine and good that he made a Ronald Reagan ad talking shit, but Premier Doug Ford said that he was going to have that played in all Republican districts in America. So now Donald Trump is basically saying that elected officials in Canada are meddling in the politics of the United States, and that's unacceptable. And so after that ad using Ronald Reagan's words talking shit to the American people about Donald Trump pretty much, he basically says we're done with negotiation as far as trade with Canada is concerned. Now, this may seem like a petty incident, especially since Donald Trump used to call Canada the 51st state. At the same time, Ontario Premier Doug Ford is the same guy that threatened to cut off power from Niagara Falls into the United States. So typically, I would say that Donald Trump is being petty on this particular issue. But Ontario Premier Doug Ford is kind of a piece of shit. And he's openly blasted not only Donald Trump and our government, but the American people as well. So let me know in the comments if you think Donald Trump is going too far. But at the same time, man, fuck you, Doug Ford. You've been an asshole to us ever since Donald Trump's been in power, and slightly before. Doug Ford, you need to fucking check yourself. We know you don't like Donald Trump, but the American people still like Canada. And you talking shit, go fuck yourself.
So my last video, I was talking about how Trump likes to shoot himself in the ass when he whines about shit, right? And so, yeah. He was whining about the Reagan ad that came out talking about tariffs, and Reagan hated tariffs and went off on them. And Canada, Ontario specifically, made an ad basically playing back Reagan's own words, saying how tariffs are horrible and a U.S. president should not use them. Countries shouldn't use them. And so Trump hated that. And he bitched about it, and he said, we're going to, end all trade negotiations, right? And the Ontario Canada Premier, said like, okay, we'll phase it out, we'll turn it off, because we basically just achieved our objectives. Everybody in America is talking about it right now at the highest levels, and that's only because Trump bitched about it so much. So whoever did that ad campaign, money, because you crushed it. Like, you reached into that guy's soul, into Trump's soul, and hurt him with Reagan's own words. And now everybody's talking about it and going the fact that Reagan hated that, and proving the point. And, because he bitched about it, because Trump bitched about it so much, it was everywhere and everybody was talking about it. So yeah, great job. Trump will say like, oh, I won. You pulled it out. You pulled the ad. It's too late. It's too late, man. Because you bitched about it so much that everybody knows about it and is listening to Reagan's speech, railing on tariffs. So once again, yeah, you're your own worst enemy, but sure as hell helps us and puts more pressure on you. So way to go, Trump.
Don't scroll. This is an important story. Donald Trump is finagling it so that his friends take over much of American media and social media. Check this out from Bernie Sanders. Bernie is correct. Trump is now trying to get his buddies, his MAGA buddies, to take over CNN. They just took over CBS. Elon has Twitter. They're buying TikTok now. Larry Ellison's going to get that too. Larry Ellison, his one MAGA friend alone, has CBS, is now going after CNN. We'll have TikTok shortly, according to the rumors. Folks, this is dangerous as hell. What Trump did last night, which is insane, Trump tweeted last night that when CNN gets sold, right, as part of Paramount, they better sell it to his friend. He said, he warned them and said, you want to work, you want to do deals, you better sell it to my friend or I'm going to use the government to come after you. This is socialism. Interfering with private business contracts so that Trump's friends, mind you, one friend, can own all of American media, can own all of American social media. This is what they do in dictatorship. It's what they do in fascist governments. It's not what they do in America. It's what they're doing in America today. This is incredibly dangerous what's happening, folks. People need to wake up and start paying attention to this stuff.
So the orange buffoon is having a meltdown, or at least he was this morning. because the Premier of Ontario, Canada, released an ad against Donald Trump's tariffs, and the substance of that ad was a Ronald Reagan radio address that he delivered as president against tariffs, using Ronald Reagan's own words to argue against Donald Trump and his massive illegal tariffs. Now, he is losing his shit over this. And, you know, of course, the MAGA cult is rallying around him. But Trump called it a fake ad, that Ronald Reagan never said what he says in the audio that was used. And disgracefully, and this is to me the most disgraceful thing about this story, the Ronald Reagan Presidential Foundation issued a statement about this and said that Doug Ford had no permission to use this audio of Ronald Reagan, but more importantly, that it was deceptive, leaving the impression, without saying it directly, that Ronald Reagan supported Donald Trump's tariffs, or would have supported Donald Trump's tariffs, that he was in favor of these kinds of tariffs. And in their statement, the Reagan Foundation said that they were also reviewing their legal actions, their legal options against Doug Ford for using this clip. And they also put a link to a YouTube video of the original Ronald Reagan address that was used in the ad. And if you actually, now they did this because they know that the MAGA cult, the intended audience for this, would not actually click through to watch the video. Now, I have actually watched that video several times myself. In fact, I used part of that Ronald Reagan address when Donald Trump first announced these tariffs, to show how these tariffs are not conservative. Ronald Reagan certainly would not have supported them. And if you watch that video, because what they're saying is that Doug Ford
was so close, but he screwed it up because he sucks at everything. Trump just had an opportunity to dunk on Canada, defend his trade policy, and possibly steal the crown from the guy who's still wearing it 30 years later. And that guy is Ronald Reagan. The opportunity was gifted to him on a silver platter, his favorite kind of a gift, by the Canadian government. This gift came earlier this week when Canada launched an ad campaign. When I heard it, that campaign stopped me in my tracks. I was watching the Mariners-Blue Jays game when I heard a familiar voice. I stopped cooking dinner and I turned to my wife and I said, "Is that Ronald Reagan?" Because in this ad, the Canadian government used Ronald Reagan's own anti-tariff language. He said tariffs and isolationism in general were basically an economic death spiral, and they torched Trump's entire economic agenda. In his knee-jerk response, Trump lashed out at Canada, severing trade negotiations because they had the nerve to use Reagan's words against him in a massive ad spend designed to reach every American possible. But strategically, this was the dumbest possible response Trump could have picked. And in shitting the bed so grossly, he exposed his lack of understanding of tariffs and how they can actually be used effectively in trade policy. Because here's the thing, you guys. Ronald Reagan was not an economic genius. In fact, most smart economists recognize that the rush to globalize the economy through the 80s and 90s, at least in terms of the working class, was maybe the most consequential series of decisions since the Great Depression. Before globalization, Americans made stuff and other Americans bought that stuff. And trade barriers helped protect our ability to grow internally. They also limited our ability to grow into external markets. This is why union workers overwhelmingly voted Democratic through the golden years of working class jobs. They were only profiting off the work, not off the profit margins, which is why the Reaganomics drive for globalization was the beginning of the end. for union workers in America. Now, to be clear, I'm not pro-tariff or anti-globalization. I'm just pro-smart trade policy, which can include some protections for your most valuable industries and free trade for the areas where you can effectively compete and win. But defining and deploying a smart trade policy is difficult when your president thinks in grunts and speaks in pre-K. A smart Trump would have allowed Canada to lean into it and responded with a populist counterpunch, like Reaganomics destroyed manufacturing in this country and now Canada wants you to have more of it because that's how they make money at our expense. I'm not even making that argument, I'm just saying that would have been a good one. In that sense, Canada's ad played directly into his populist hand. But because he's either too afraid to take on Reagan or he's too dumb to know what is actually happening, he tripped like a toddler when he could have pivoted like a president.
So let me tell you why Donald Trump's behavior towards Canada over the last 12 to 14 hours has been so erratic and why it has nothing to do with the advert. Two massive things have happened. Canada has done two massive things in the last few days which would infuriate Donald Trump. So Donald Trump wants people to bow to him. Okay? Canada has not been doing that. A day or two ago, Mark Carney made a speech where he said, we're going to start doubling the amount of non-US exports. So we're going to find new trading partners. He said that we cannot rely on the United States anymore. That trading partnerships that we once had is gone. We're moving on. The bus is gone. We're on that bus. We're moving on. We are not going to be bowing to the United States anymore. We'll find our own path. That will infuriate Donald Trump because he wants to be bowed to. The other massive thing that Canada has done, and I'd love you to share this video, is that they have said, if Benjamin Netanyahu, I always struggle saying his name, the Israeli leader, steps on Canadian soil, he will be immediately arrested for war crimes. So that has happened in the last 5 days. And those two things would burn Donald Trump from the inside out. It has nothing to do with an advert, even though those were Ronald Reagan's words. But I'm sure that's just the icing on the cake. Folks, let me know what you think about this in the comments.
So it seems like Donald Trump is preparing to go to war with Venezuela, and it appears to be pretty imminent. Remember when Donald Trump lied and said he was anti-war? Me too. Outward signs on Friday pointed toward a major potential military escalation, with Trump and his administration ordering the Navy's most advanced aircraft carrier strike group, currently stationed in Europe, to the Caribbean region amid a massive buildup of U.S. forces there. Trump has also authorized the CIA to conduct covert operations in Venezuela. Here are just some of the major ships that have been deployed, and the U.S. has deployed more than 4,500 Marines and sailors, along with a significant portion of its naval and air assets, to the Caribbean. Here's some more, including jets, submarines, all that stuff. Trump is also weighing strikes inside Venezuela, like striking their land, which is a huge escalation. And even Fox News is reporting that 14% of our Navy fleet is now in the Caribbean, a major buildup. When Stephen Miller was asked if the U.S. would consider putting troops on the ground in any capacity inside Venezuela, he said that they're going to be killed. Not very reassuring for not going to war. And finally, it's also been reported that U.S. troops will deploy to Trinidad and Tobago this weekend for a 5-day visit full of military exercises. And for the MAGA fans out there who didn't know that was a country until 5 seconds ago, this is Trinidad and Tobago, and that's Venezuela on a map. They're very close together. So yeah, the guy who claimed he was anti-war appears to be going to war.
Hey, what's up, America? Donald Trump cancels all trade negotiations with Canada again. So this time, Donald Trump's feud with Ontario Premier Doug Ford continues to grow. So Ontario Premier Doug Ford sent out a video showing Ronald Reagan talking about how tariffs destroy American families. Now that's all fine and good that he made a Ronald Reagan ad talking shit, but Premier Doug Ford said that he was going to have that played in all Republican districts in America. So now Donald Trump is basically saying that elected officials in Canada are meddling in the politics of the United States, and that's unacceptable. And so after that ad using Ronald Reagan's words talking shit to the American people about Donald Trump pretty much, he basically says we're done with negotiation as far as trade with Canada is concerned. Now, this may seem like a petty incident, especially since Donald Trump used to call Canada the 51st state. At the same time, Ontario Premier Doug Ford is the same guy that threatened to cut off power from Niagara Falls into the United States. So typically, I would say that Donald Trump is being petty on this particular issue. But Ontario Premier Doug Ford is kind of a piece of shit. And he's openly blasted not only Donald Trump and our government, but the American people as well. So let me know in the comments if you think Donald Trump is going too far. But at the same time, man, fuck you, Doug Ford. You've been an asshole to us ever since Donald Trump's been in power, and slightly before. Doug Ford, you need to fucking check yourself. We know you don't like Donald Trump, but the American people still like Canada. And you talking shit, go fuck yourself.
Who are declaring war against these cartels, and Congress is likely to approve of that process. Why not just ask for a declaration of war?
Well, I don't think we're going to necessarily ask for a declaration of war. I think we're just going to kill people that are bringing drugs into our country. Okay? We're going to kill them. You know, they're going to be like dead. Okay.
Okay. This is cosplay, right, but it's real. Yeah. And any other American president says and does stuff like this, it's impeachment. The most disheartening thing about all of this is it could all end if Republicans had a spine. Every ounce of this horror show could end if these Republicans had a spine, but they don't, because they have a long-term vision of this country being under Christian nationalist rule. And so they're willing to go along with this demented toddler who throws feces all over the White House when he's not tearing it down, all over the Constitution. He erodes civil liberties. And now he just straight up, boom, we're going to kill people, dead.
It took me back to our interview with Ruth Ben-Ghiat, because she said the first time Trump said, when she heard for the first time that Trump said, I can go on Fifth Avenue and shoot people, she was like, he's an authoritarian. And he is sitting there saying, I'm going to murder people without due process, and you can't touch me. I just thought that is the most authoritarian thing that you could possibly say. I'm going to run around murdering people and I don't give a shit.
Yeah, I mean, along with all of the other authoritarian plays that he's done with ICE, and the list goes on and on. Moving along, Hegseth was asked about the existence of a memo establishing the National Guard as a response team to crowd control, and that they want this force to be in place by April of 2026. And I want you to hear his response, because he doesn't deny this. Play the clip.
Sir, a memo circulating on social media details the establishment of a National Guard response force that's going to be trained in crowd control and civil unrest and deployed in all 50 states by April of 2026. Can you verify the authenticity of that memo, and do you have any more information on the operations?
I'm not going to answer particulars on something that may be in the planning process, but we definitely do have multiple layers of National Guard response forces, whether it's in each state, whether it's regionally, whether it's Title 10 active duty, whether it's Washington, D.C. We've got a lot of different ways that constitutionally and legally we can employ Title 10 and Title 32 forces, and we will do so when necessary.
Okay, I want to paint the picture for you guys, very crystal clear here. This is supposed to be set up in April of 2026. They are going to do everything they can do to interfere with the election. They've already set up this directive wherein they can send the FBI and other forces from whatever arm of Trump's Gestapo that he likes to anybody who has anti-American sentiment, anti-capitalist sentiment, anti-Christian sentiment. And so the fact that he didn't deny this shows you their ambitions about sabotaging the election are well in motion and more organized than we realize.
The East Wing of the White House has been demolished. It is gone. It has been flattened. It has been leveled. first of all, that's where Donald Trump's wife, that's where her office was. Oh, honey, I demolished your office today. Apart from that, seeing the before and after, like overhead images, it made me feel physically ill. It made me feel sick. It is such a perfect commentary on everything in October of 2025 in this country. It is just the perfect commentary on everything. Republicans don't build anything, they just destroy. They're taking every single thing that even resembles a benefit of government away from the American people without returning any of our tax dollars. They're giving those to billionaires. Donald Trump views the White House as his, to do with as he pleases. He just demolished the entire East Wing. He demolished 1/3 of the White House. And the inbred, fart-huffing, MAGA chud, Trump sycophant supporters think it's amazing. He's building a ballroom that is larger than the White House itself. That there was no demand for this. Nobody asked for this. There hasn't been some movement that the White House needs a ballroom. But he just said, fuck you, and bulldozed it, which is what he's doing to the government, which is what he's doing to this country, because he thinks this country is his. But he hates almost everybody who lives here. His supporters claim to love America, but they fucking hate 65% of the people who live here. It just made me physically ill that he just said fuck it and did this. And there was nothing to stop him. And if Donald Trump has done anything, it has been to conclusively demonstrate that America, not to mention, I mean, not the East Wing. The East Wing is a little over 100 years old. But the White House was built by fucking slaves, man. The White House itself was built by slaves. And I think we forget that too frequently. The people's house of the United States of America was built by slaves. You want to talk about another metaphor? Built by slaves. But he has demonstrated that this idea of America was just a fucking illusion built on trust and faith, of which Trump has neither. It's taken him 9 months, not even, to destroy that. Just like he destroyed the East Wing of the White House. It has taken him 9 months to just lay bare the illusion, the lie of the United States of America, and just tear it the fuck down. And we all just keep going to work. We had our rallies last weekend, our No Kings rallies. And I'm grateful for the diverse voices that I've heard on this app talking about and sharing their perspectives on last weekend's No Kings rallies, especially Black Americans on this app. But it's just laid bare the whole fucking lie of the United States. And it's just such a perfect, horrifying encapsulation of that.